Hello guys and girls. Today we're gonna work on my daughter's 68 Beetle. That 68 Beetle is in the family for a long time. She inherited it from my stepmother-in-law, and then unfortunately she died in a mad cow disease, and then she left the car to my daughter. So we're trying to keep it alive. Finally she has a driver's license and she will be able to drive it, but we got several problems on it. I was attempt to make the brake work again, so change the brake cylinders, change the brake shoes, the rubber hoses, and then here comes the problem. It sticks on the front. We adjusted the brake shoes and it drags when it goes forward, but if you let it roll backwards like a couple of feet, then it releases. So I have a feeling it might be the master cylinder. There is a check valve at the bottom. Maybe that's what's failing, so I got another master cylinder. We're going to change that. And while I was lifting up the car, I noticed that the right side, the lower ball joint is gotta play about that much. So we're gonna change the ball joints. As I understand, we're supposed to take the whole thing out, take this whole rods out. But I have a pusher for a Chevrolet, what you call that, bushing. I have a bushing tool for a Chevy, and I think I can, with some spacers, I can make it work. At least I try to make it work to push the ball joints out without removing the whole axle assembly. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to lift it up and then take the wheels off. Cut the wheels off, and the first order of business is going to be to remove the shock absorbers at the bottom. See where that big nut is, and then once that's done, I'm going to remove the nuts. I'm going to do one side at a time. Then I'm going to remove the nuts from the ball joints. Also found some rot in it. There is a little bit of chew right there. The rust chewed it up. So I know for sure now I'm gonna have to find another one of these. So I'm gonna start looking, and I'm probably gonna buy one and fix it up on the ground and then replace it once it's all ready. Technically, you're supposed to remove these pins or some sort of things, and then you can take the stabilizer arm off altogether. Actually it's on the other side. No, here. I think these are the one. It's like a little holders what you can remove, and then you can get the stabilizer arm off, and then you have several bolts which you can undo and take the whole thing out. What I'm trying to do here is I have a tool which is used for another Chevy product or something, and I think I can push this out with that. So that's why I'm not taking all that apart. So the only thing I'm doing right now is taking these nuts off, and as you see, the unit is not moving from it. I mean, I like to apologize from Volkswagen gurus because these are obvious things, but maybe somebody's watching this who has never seen such a thing, and never seen, this is their first car what they're fixing, and maybe they're trying to figure out how to do this. But that's why I may go down to more basic stuff than I should. But I move this until it's really easy to turn, and now I'm gonna make it pop. So I'm gonna show you how the part looks like, what we're gonna put in one side. This is the new part. As you see, this one stuck in it, and there is a mark in it which becomes important a little later. But right now you can see this part is smaller here and bigger here, so it's actually stuck in this part here. So what we want to do is remove the nut until we can, to make sure it can go further, and then now you're going to hit this part. Hopefully it will pop open. If not, I have other tools or forks what I can put in and hit it, and it will come apart. Same thing on the top. One is bigger, the other one is smaller. So I assume this one is for the lower one, this one is for the top one. The only thing, I like TRW products, but the only thing I don't like in this particular one, that there is no grease fitting, and I don't know how much grease was it put in here. So I'm thinking I'm gonna drill this out and install a grease fitting just like this one had, so I can grease it up while it's in use. That supposedly prolongs its life for a very long time. So next thing I'm gonna do, I get a big hammer and start hitting it here, see if it pops out. If not, I'm gonna get the fork out. Just by hitting the bottom one, like so, the top one already fell apart, but the bottom one doesn't want to budge. So what I think I'm gonna do, I get the fork and finish it off with that. I'll plug this fork in, let's try to hit it to see if it comes apart. Looks like I'm gonna get the larger hammer and hit it a little bit more. It was a real battle to get that thing out. First I tried it with this, but this one proved to be too wide for this, and also I put it in from the wrong end. It works better if you put it in from the back, and finally it came apart. So now the next problem is that once I took those nuts off, this whole assembly will want to fall. So I think I'm gonna wire it to the top of the shock absorber tower to hold it, so the brake hose and the speedometer cable will not get hurt when I take this whole thing apart. For the better visibility, I moved the hub a little bit higher, and I wanted to show you what this original piece looks like. So I removed the whatever remained from the dust shield. That's the rubber piece, and I also removed the bottom part. That's like a little spring what holds this the remains of the dust shield on, and you can see that it was moving just a little bit. So when it gets to the point where there's no more material left, it actually just came out, and then the whole wheel will flip back. But you can see that this is the part what stays, and the piece in the middle will come out. So now I'm gonna assemble my pusher and attempt to push it out, and then I don't have to remove everything out of the car. This is the set what I was talking about. I have some extra pieces for it, which I use to change bushings on my Ford Fairlane and the 71 Buick and other GM products from the 70s and before. This one is an Elidon piece, and also I got another one inside here. I don't know where that came from, but I got that too. And I got several other little things what I attempt to use to assemble something so I can push that ball joint out. While we still can see it, I wanted to show you why is it important to have it oriented properly. Because if you see, this thing only can move this way. It's not able to move that way. So only can go back and forth. So you need to really assemble it where the mark is to the front and the back. You can see there is a mark on it at the very bottom. Oops, sorry, right there. You can see the mark, and that has to be straight with the car, where the car is pointing to. So it can go back and forth, because if you disorient it, this will start hitting, and then the whole thing just breaks, or I don't know what happens to it. I tried everything, but it's not budging. So I guess this idea was not good. I even cut the top part off, and yeah, I was trying everything. It's just not working. So I gotta take it all apart just like normally you would. So I would have to take these ones off, this bolt off, and there's supposed to be one more little Allen wrench somewhere I have to find under the grease. I guess once this stabilizer arm comes off, I can find it. The top one, same thing. So I'm just gonna remove all these. Before I take it, I'm gonna have to take this adjusting off of it, and then I can head over to my friend who has a hydraulic press. Well, I got stuck. These ones does not want to come off. I lubricated them and all kind of tricks I used. I hit it and it's not happening, so I'm gonna have to just cut them off. Unfortunately, these are nice original parts, but it is what it is. I can buy a new one for like $15 or something like that, but I need to order it. They don't have it at the local parts store. So I'm gonna have to take these off and remove the other side as well. So now I'm just gonna take the other side off. I'm gonna rope it just like the other side, so this one would hang on the wire, not on the brake line. And then I can get to the bolts. I think that's the one I need to get off here. So I'm gonna have to cut that sway bar off. It's a fairly straightforward thing. Just took this bolt out. Before I put it back in, I'm gonna have to clean it and make sure that Allen key will go in there. And then simply moving it up and down, the whole thing comes out. You can see that I greased it up pretty good. So I'm gonna have to clean it off, and we can go take it and push this thing out. I cut off these pieces. Looks like they were all rotten from the Alberta salt, because my father-in-law used to have it up there. And then these rubber bushings are not bushings anymore, they're kind of rockish, so I'm gonna have to buy a new sway bar kit. It doesn't cost much, it's just gonna take time to get it here. On this side, it actually came off like it's supposed to. So there is that piece, and then the lock nut came off first, and then this one, so I was able to take it out. it goes back the same way as first this one. It centers it, holds it, and then you lock it with that knot to make sure it stays in position. So I'm gonna get the other ones off, take the whole thing out, and I just realized I may have to cut this one off because it's not moving on it at all. So it has to, I have to keep this part here, this eccentric knot, or I don't know how would you say that. And this one has to be able to slide on this. So I'm gonna have to somehow get it out and make sure when I can keep it and put it back on the new one. I'm getting ready to go to my friend's shop where he has a press, and then I'm gonna press these out, press the ball joints out, and then I'm gonna take it to a power washer and wash the whole thing. In order to not to hurt the very finely machined surfaces, I put this tape on. Plus I don't want any water to go in, so I put that bolt back in. So I'm gathering my tools, thinking of what will I need to do to push that, to press that out. So I got a couple of boxes of various tools what I think I might need. And I also gonna have to press out these adjusting setups. I don't know how to do that yet, but we'll figure it out when we get there. This is one of these ball joints, and you can see that they were very careful with the greasing, so there's not much grease in it. So I'm thinking I'm gonna drill a hole in the back and I'm gonna put a greasing fitting in it. So in order to do that, I already have a little setup here, but I don't have the right drill. So I measured it. I need about a 5mm drill in order to accommodate this grease fitting, which I think I'm gonna have to buy when I go into town. So I wanted to do it on this machine to put this one from somewhere, I'm not sure what it was. There's a little dot on the top, so I can very nicely use this to push it out, or actually drill it out here. So that's what's, I'm gonna take this piece with me, and then I'm gonna make it happen at my friend's shop. I got to my friend's shop. This little yuppie dog is like a politician, likes to enjoy her own voice and yaps at everybody who passes by. Here's the cylinder head what came back for the Cosworth, what we're working on. It's my buddy's Vega Cosworth. And then the reason why we're here is not that, but my buddy has one of these pressing units, so this is what I intend to use to press out the ball joints. I finally found the right setup here, and then it's out. Great. This is the first time when I'm trying to do this, so I came up with the idea that I'm gonna cut this off because my little pipe is too short, and then I took off the rubber boot pieces. One is looked like a keychain with holding on the rubber boot, and then just cut off the top part, so I'm gonna be able to see what I'm doing, and then push it like that. I just gotta put it over it. The doggies are really super bored, but I got all the ball joints pushed out, so now we're heading to the car wash, and we're gonna wash these off. Came back from the car wash, it didn't really do much, so I think I need to finish it off with a wire brush at home, especially these parts, a little rusted. And then I think I'm just gonna push the ball joints back in and then finish it off at home. The first order of business is that I like to put the little grease plugs in it, or grease fittings in it, so I got a drill bit from Napa. Hopefully that's gonna work, and I'm gonna drill it out here before I'm gonna put these on. My friend has a lot better drill press here, or sorry, a drill. So I already drilled one out in just the perfect size. I just need to cut a little thread in it when I get home. So here comes the next one. Since I never really done this before, I would have done just one side at a time, but since I don't have that press, I didn't want it to buy one just for this job. I came to my friend's shop, like you seen it, and I gotta make sure that it goes back correctly. So these pieces, these ball joints have a little mark on them. See, there's a mark. It has to be oriented just like the wheel, forward and backwards, and exactly 90 degrees to this part here. So I took pictures when I took them apart, so I can push them back correctly. there it is, pushed in, and everything's put back together. So now I just gotta do the rest of them. For the lower arms I had to reconfigure the whole thing, and now it's going in really nicely. I've finished with all these ball joints pushed in, so now we just have one last thing to do, that adjusting setup. I don't know what it's called, but this one has to be pushed out because I need that adjusting part. Doggies are ready. Let's go home. I found the appropriate tap. I got a metric tap set, and I tapping a little thread in it, and it looks like it went in. This one is a little crooked, but it is what it is. I couldn't care less. It went in, and I'm gonna able to grease it up. So I'm gonna tap the rest of them, and then put the a little new grease fittings in it, because I just changed those grease fittings not too long ago. I use this wire brush and clean them up sort of, and then wash them off with that dishwashing soap. And now they're drying, and after that we're gonna go out and spray paint them to make them look one color. It's a nice sunny afternoon, good time to spray paint. I covered up the little grease fittings, and then I covered up the rubber because I don't want to spray on the rubber, and then I covered up the hole where the little screw goes in. So I guess I'm ready to do this. This is how the end result looks like. If it would have been a restoration, I would have probably sandblasted them and then used powder coater services, but it looks fine. I didn't paint the rubber boots or the grease fittings or this part what goes into the spring housing. So next thing is we need to put them up into a position and then start assembling the car. I just put the first one on. I took a picture beforehand to make sure I see the orientation of this arm, and I can put the rest of them on. There are certain grooves on it, so you can put it in different ways. So I guess that's how you can lower the car front suspension. That's one way to do it. I don't think it's a proper way to do it, but I want to make sure that it goes back the way it was before. So I'm gonna have to find the rest of these arms and then start putting them on. Before I put it on, I use my favorite grease to just grease it up a little, just to make sure it's lubricated, but nonetheless I'm gonna use this grease fitting and grease it up once it's in position. Now I just noticed that there is a wedge there, so to lower the car, I don't think it's a good idea to move it in a different place, so most likely you're gonna have to move that main setting screw or use a different hub in order to lower the car, but this is where the little bolt goes in, so it only should go back in the same position the way it came out of. Please remember that I'm not a professional mechanic. I'm an airline pilot. I'm just a grease monkey and like old cars. So I'm just showing you how I'm doing this. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to do this way. Maybe you know a better way. But the next one, what I come up with is that these little adjusters, you can adjust the camber with it. So when it goes on, the alignment shop will need to move this one. So in order to be able to move it and it wouldn't freeze up, I'm gonna put anti-seize on it. And also I'm gonna put some anti-seize on the top so it will be able to slide when it actually been put in position. And then I'm gonna put these ones in. I'm gonna tie them up, and then after they tight, then I'm gonna put the lock nuts on and lock them in position. So that's what's coming next. Also, I forgot, I'm gonna put a little anti-seize on this surface here, because sometimes the middle shaft comes out from this bushing, and the shaft will stay, the rubber comes out, and then you're not gonna be able to put the new shock absorber on. So I'm gonna put a little anti-seize in here too, to make sure that inner piece will not freeze on this shaft here. Just gonna tighten off these screws. It doesn't have to be all that tight, and then just have to keep it in position. Now we can put the lock nut on it and tie that as well. Now that I tightened up the lock nuts, I placed this little camber adjustment spacer in there, and then now I'm gonna just attempt to put this whole hub into position. Don't forget the big thick washer goes to the top one, and the little one goes to the bottom one. I had to seek help from this floor jack to push it up, lift it up just a little bit so I can move the top and the bottom in just so. Don't forget that the thick washer goes to the top and the thin washer, the smaller one, goes to the bottom. I hope you saved it from when you took it apart. And then when I lifted it up, not too much, just a little bit, then the whole thing popped into position, and now I can tighten the nuts. Now with this, I finished the right side. So it looks like both washers at the correct position, nuts are tight. Then I had to lift it up a little bit again to put the shock absorber on. I put a little anti-seize on the shaft to make sure it will not seize. Next time you want to take it apart, so everything is all tight, good to go. So we do the same thing on the other side. I used my favorite grease and greased it all up on the top, bottom, top. Again, there is one more here, this one, and that one. So now we can start putting the stabilizer arm on it. I actually got the new kit for it, new rubber and the new metal parts. So that's the next thing we're gonna install that. It was a fight, but after some proper lubrication, I was able to push on these things, and now I can try to install them where they belong to. So I just figured it out. What did I do wrong earlier? As it turns out, these little tabs has to be bent up, and that's how I found it, the old ones. So what I need to do next time is to bend that down and hit it down that way, because it's got a shape like this, and I was trying to hit it this way. Of course it didn't go, so this is why I had to buy these new ones. So it's not an easy thing to put that on. I don't have a help here, so provisory I hanged it up with some wires, and then now the first one is barely just start going on. So it's hard. You got to bend this to position and then pull it together with some pliers and then try to hit this up, and once it's up, bend the little tab to keep it on. This was not easy to do. So if you can do one of these jobs to put these things on your own, a brand new one, with no help from anyone, then I say you're okay. It was terrible, but it's all up now. It's all done. So the only thing what's left is to put the little plugs in. There are some plug holes on the inside of the brake disc, or the brake, I don't know how you call that brake piece. And we need to plug up those holes. I got some new rubber plugs for them. And once that's done, we can start changing the master cylinder. Now we're gonna focus on replacing the master cylinder, because I think maybe that's the problem, why the front brakes are still dragging. So again, the problem was that I changed everything in the front brakes and the rear brakes, all the shoes, the cylinders, brake hoses, some brake lines, and then only on the front, when I stop, the shoes not going back. They're not returning to their position for some reason. I don't know why. I adjusted them. You can hear it. It's right there. And then, so when I step on the brake, they start dragging. If I start rolling back just a little bit, they release. So I just don't know where to go with that. So next thing I'm gonna do is replace the master cylinder. I'm not totally sure it's necessary, but I'm hoping it's might gonna fix the problem. So looks like we got two brake light switches on it. We got the reservoir coming from the top, and then a brake line on the front, brake line on the back, and then looks like two screws holding this in position. So what I think I'm going to start with, I'm going to clean up the area a little bit from the suspension repair. Then I'm going to attempt to move those brake lines first. Actually, I'm going to take the liquid out of it. I'm going to pump the reservoir. I'm going to pump the brake fluid out of the reservoir first, so you get not that much of a leak coming out. And then I'm going to remove the top hoses, and then I'm going to take off the electrical cables and then remove the metal lines. And once they're all removed, I think I'm going to go inside the car and remove the two bolts that's holding it into position. So that's going to be the plan for today. I'm going to spray this thing black. I just use some 91% isopropylic alcohol to clean off the oil. The factory puts oil on it so it wouldn't get rusted by the time it gets to me. But if I put this thing up like this, it's going to be rusted in a month. So to avoid that, I'm just going to spray it. I'm going to use this machine to suck the brake fluid out. We can move it like this. It shows you the vacuum, but I don't really need that. So I just, you can see there is a siphon in the middle. That's what comes from the brake reservoir and sucks up the fluid. This creates a vacuum inside this, and simply just sucks the brake fluid out from the brake reservoir, so I would have less leak in the system when I open it up. In a Volkswagen, the reservoir is in the trunk, which is in the front, obviously. So it's right there in this car, and it's got an advanced 2-circuit brake system on it. So I sucked all the fluid out. Now it's time to go underneath and continue disassembling the accessories off of that master cylinder. I successfully removed everything what had to be removed from the old master cylinder, as you can see. And here's the new one, what's just about ready to go in. The only obvious problem with it is that these ones in the wrong orientation, so simply I'm hoping I can just twist them to the right way. It's not a good thing to spray into those holes, so you can see I leave those holes out, and the rest is all painted. So what I'm gonna do next is go inside the car and find those 2 bolts what holding this master cylinder on. It's not rocket science, just move the carpet away a little bit, whatever left of it, and it's right there. You can see it. That's where the pedal pushes that rod, and you can see the rubber, and then the 2 M8 bolts. Looks like the original bolts, so I'm just gonna have to remove them. The master cylinder would come right out. Now you see that little rod what going through, there's some adjusting options on it. You need to make sure that you set up the that rod to make sure it's the proper distance, because if you don't have enough clearance between the end of that rod and the guts of the master cylinder, then you're gonna end up having trouble. So if you continuously pushing that master cylinder, it will not release the pressure from your brakes, so there will be a pressure buildup, and then that's gonna cause problems as well. Now this was surprisingly tight. I had to use this really big bar with all these little extensions in there, and then finally it gave away. It's just crazy. So I don't know when was this last time changed, but it was about time to do this stuff. So when it goes back, I'm gonna use some anti-seize on those bolts to make sure it's not gonna happen in the future. This thing was stuck on the firewall. Well, I'm not sure you can call it a firewall because the engine is on the back, but it was so stuck there that I had to use this big pry bar to get it out. And then when it popped, I hit my head in this fender pretty badly. So it was comical, but it came out. So I guess I can get the brake light switches off and put it on the new one. The new master cylinder is ready for installation. I cleaned off the bolts. I put a little anti-seize on it to make sure it doesn't seize up next time. I put the proper braided hoses on it, the brake light switches, and it's all painted, ready to go in. I wanted to show you guys the pedal slack. So basically just by a finger, just push it, and you can hear it when it hits the master cylinder, the guts of the master cylinder, and then it's gonna start actuating. So I think this is it could be adjusted to a little bit closer. I just don't want to screw with it, so that's how it's gonna be. But the main thing is that it's not touching the guts of the master cylinder all the time, so it's releasing the pressure. That's what I'm really after. So now that the master cylinder is on, the supply hoses are connected to the where it goes to the reservoir. Now we're gonna have to bleed the master cylinder before we can bleed the whole system. The way I usually do it is to fill it up with brake fluid. Then my helper, is my daughter, the owner of the car, will go in and press on the brake pedal slowly. And then once it's pressed in all the way to the bottom, but be careful not to push it all the way, just almost all the way, but don't put any force on it at the end, because that could damage the master cylinder. And then I'm gonna plug up these holes, just like on a flute. And when I plugged up those holes with my fingers, those 3 holes were still open. Then she's gonna let the brake pedal up slowly, and then it's gonna suck the fluid in from the reservoir. Once that happened, then she tells me that it's all the way up. Then I'm gonna open up those holes and let her push it in again, and once they pushed out, then I'm gonna plug those holes again. You need to do it like 2 or 3 times until the fluid starts coming out. Once the fluid starts coming out, then we just leave it alone. I attach the the pipes, the brake lines, and then we can bleed the whole car after that. Now that we have bled the master cylinder, everything is back on. Looks good. So now the next thing to do is to bleed the whole system. So we're gonna put the wheels back on, and then we're gonna fill up the reservoir first, and we're gonna start from the far right. That's the furthest from the master cylinder, then the left side, and then the right side of the front and the left side of the front in this sequence. So the way it's gonna go is my daughter's gonna go in and start pushing the brakes. She's gonna pump it 3 times. I'm gonna open up the bleeder screw in the back and wait until it comes out, and again pump it a few times and so on. So that's like a regular bleeding procedure, you probably know already. While we edit, I'd like to talk to you about the brake fluid containers. So always use a sealed, non-used brake fluid container. Never use an old one, because the brake fluid attracts moisture, which you see on the left side. That's a normal brake fluid. It says .4. The .4 really not necessary for this car. It could be a .3, but that's all I have here. So this was a new container, and the .4 and the .3 only referring to the boiling point of the liquid. So if the brake gets really heated up, like on disc brakes on faster cars, sometimes they do, the boiling point is higher on .4. But then there is another brake fluid here, the .5. The trick to it is that this one doesn't harm the paint. This thing will not attract moisture. The problem is you cannot mix the two things together at all. So I'm gonna have another project coming up, the 77 Mercury, which I'm gonna have brand new brake system, the whole thing, everything, the cylinders, the proportioning valve, master cylinders, brake hoses, brake pipes, everything's gonna be new. At that time, I'm gonna convert over to .5 for that one car. But this Volkswagen already had .4 in it, so I just don't want to mix the two things together. So we're putting the originally designed regular brake fluid in it. Now for bleeding, I have a really good tool here. What I can't use today because I don't have the proper adapter. This thing is a vacuum, a pressure bleeder system. So you put brake fluid in it, you pump it up, it creates pressure, and then you put it on the master cylinder reservoir, and then it will replace the fluid what comes out, and basically it creates a pressurized system, and you just open the bleeder screw and the stuff will come out. But I don't have the Volkswagen adapter. This is for Mercedes, and I got one for the Chevys and other American cars, but I don't have a Volkswagen adapter, so we're just gonna do it the old-fashioned way today, just pushing the pedal and let the air out. While my daughter was playing with the wheel to put it on, we found a huge discrepancy. Look at the brake drum, the way it moves. So actually keep moving it, sweetie. You see it? So the whole wheel is moving because we changed the bearings in it, and I guess we need to tighten it a little bit more. This one moves a lot, this one moves a little bit, so I guess we're gonna just retighten the wheel bearings on it. Maybe that will help with the problem, and maybe that's why we changed the master cylinder for nothing, but it was old anyway, so it's a good thing. But we're gonna tighten these little bearings, and then we're gonna continue with the bleeding. We took this cap off, and then here's an Allen wrench what goes into this little bolt. This is what tightens up this nut, and then we just tightened on the nut until we felt that it's not moving anymore. So now we can secure it with this bolt, and we can push this thing back on. So I hope that's gonna fix it.
Like the pine trees lining the winding road, I've got a name, I've got a name. Like the singing bird and the croaking toad, I've got a name, I've got a name. And I carry it with me like my daddy did, but I'm living the dream that he kept here. Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by. Like a north wind whistling down the sky, I've got a song, I've got a song. Like the whippoorwill and the babies cry, I've got a song, I've got a song.
I think we definitely did something, because after a short drive like this, it used to overheat the front brakes. So now it's not overheating, it's still a little bit stiff. So if I move backwards with the car, it's not really any worse than when I move forward with it. So it's still a little bit tight, but I have a feeling that's probably because the adjustments still, I need to wear those new shoes in. So I think they adjusted just where they're supposed to be, and then we just need to drive it. First, I'm gonna take it to an alignment, and then once the alignment is done, we're gonna drive it and keep readjusting on these shoes, and I think it's gonna be okay. We just registered this car in Kentucky, so we got the antique auto plate on it, and then we could have had the Texas plates on it, even though it's registered in Kentucky, because it's a classic car, and if you have an old plate, you can just leave it on, but my daughter said that she wants to have the Kentucky plates, so I took the old Texas ones off. Well, thank you for watching it, and we'll try something else next weekend. Bye.